The US is set to vote on further sanctions against Russia on Tuesday. The bill, which has already passed the Senate and now goes to the House, targets Russia for allegedly interfering in US presidential elections. Among other things, it blocks any partnership with Russian companies in a range of sectors. Specifically, punitive measures are foreseen for companies investing, exporting or helping Russian pipeline projects. But the move faces stiff resistance from the EU. Brussels warns it may retaliate if the move hurts European businesses. The EU Commission says it's using all diplomatic means to hinder fresh sanctions.
We are following this process with some concern regarding the European Union's energy independence and our energy security interests. We are activating all diplomatic channels to address these concerns from these US measures with our US counterparts.
A previous version of the bill had already been criticised by Germany and Austria, who are involved in the construction of a new pipeline through the Baltic Sea.
Cannot accept the US threat to impose sanctions that violate international law and affect European companies involved in the expansion of Europe's energy supply. Europe's energy supply is a matter for Europe and not the United States of America. It's up to us to decide who supplies us with energy and how, according to rules of openness and market competition.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has called the EU very protectionist with the US. He wrote this in a recent tweet, adding that Washington is now working on a major trade deal with the United Kingdom. The bill accuses Russia of weaponizing gas exports, but as Caleb Maupin explains, it would actually hand the US more power to control the global energy market.
So after months of podium pounding and condemnations against Russia, the U.S. Congress is about to pass a bill penalizing Russia. Not much to see here, right? Just part of the ongoing confrontation. Well, let's take a look at what's actually in the bill. The bill is targeting the construction of a key natural gas pipeline into Europe, citing what it calls detrimental impact on European energy security. Furthermore, in the same paragraph, the bill talks about exporting more of America's resources in order to create American jobs, strengthen U.S. allies, and strengthen U.S. foreign policy. Now, that all agrees with a key component of U.S. energy strategy, America's global dominance.
And finally, we will acknowledge that energy policy is not just a vital element of U.S. economic policy, but it's also a vital element of U.S. foreign policy. And one of the most important actions we can take is to use our massive shale gas resources to begin shipping liquefied natural gas overseas.
So there you have it. But what does selling gas to Europe have to do with protecting the sanctity of America's voting machines? America's European allies are now crying foul, saying that the USA is interfering with their energy policies with these sanctions.
The relationship between Russia and Germany is not always free of conflict, but I cannot see how the politics of sanctions is helping matters. There is an American saying, if you're in a hole, stop digging. I think this would be the right approach to this issue.
The United States wants somehow to have, a bigger share on the European market, especially in Germany, because Germany is the biggest market. And so far, what I saw is that the Russian gas, is somehow an enemy for the U.S. gas. Germany decides from which state it is importing the gas, and we have very long-standing relations with the Russian Federation.
At this point, Russia accounts for 38% of the European Union's natural gas, while the USA only accounts for 2% of the EU's natural gas imports. You can bet some slick Wall Street syndicates would like to reverse that lineup. So when you hear this explanation of the sanctions,
we'll continue working with the House and Senate to put those tough sanctions in place on Russia until the situation in Ukraine is fully resolved, and it certainly isn't right now.
Don't forget about this one.
We are committed to securing your access to alternate sources of energy, so Poland and its neighbors are never again held hostage to a single supplier of energy.
U.S. leaders say that they don't like Russia for all kinds of reasons. But one thing that they don't mention is that Russia is a key exporter of oil and natural gas, competing with the big monopolists. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Well, let's discuss this further with Tom Brooks, a law professor at Durham University. Welcome to the programme, Tom. Now, we've heard claims that this is an attempt by the US to boost its economy rather than punish Russia. What's your view on that?
My view is it's probably a bit of both. Donald Trump will want to have some good news back in the United States. He will want to show that he is getting better deals and better traction outside America's borders than was under Barack Obama. So if he was able to help America break into the European market, then that would be a win on that side. On the other, of course, his presidency has been dogged by a variety of controversies, including what relations his team had or did not have with Russian officials or those close to them in the run-up to the general election. So I think that it'll be both his desire to improve the economy and economic success for America. At the same time, a lot of people on Capitol Hill looking to Russia, looking to punish it.
I mean, you've mentioned the fact that, during his campaign and even now, these claims that he's dogged with secret relationships with Russia. Now, if Trump allows that bill to pass, it will reduce his chances, surely, for better relations with Russia. And on the other hand, if he blocks it, surely it'll add fuel to those claims that are being thrown around and have been for a long time now.
No, I agree. He's in a very difficult position. So because there are some who fear, of course, the investigation is only just starting into what might or might not have happened from his team. But before that's concluded, there's already calls to kind of tie his hands on what he could do in relaxing any sanctions that Congress might impose. And so on the one hand, kind of ratcheting up the temperature and making things more difficult between the two sides. So he's kind of put to a corner on that. On the other, if he was to really kind of fight it back, then it would be seen as, aha, we knew all along whose corner you were in, not the American people's side, instead on the side of a foreign power. So he's in a difficult position. These question marks over what happened with his campaign and what support did they get from outside America's border to help him win the election is the problem that is not going away for him. If anything, it's getting a lot worse, and it's now impacting on what kinds of things he can do as president 6 months on.
Okay, I mean, if we look like now, today, Trump posted on Twitter that the US is making a deal with the UK as the EU is very protectionist, those are his words. In your opinion, how likely is it going to be the case that the US and the UK gang up, if you like, against the EU?
I think that both sides will have an interest in having a deal that suits each side. Britain will want a deal right now with just about anybody, just to show that the whole Brexit vote was not a terrible mistake, as it tries to find some international economic friends, of which it's having a lot of trouble. On Donald Trump's side, he has vowed to, making America great again and putting America first. And so he's going to want to have something new to show for it. I have a very strong feeling, in my opinion, this is going to end in tears for both sides. Certainly for Britain, who is the more vulnerable side. It's the country that's changing its relations the most, and it's the one that's more desperate to have a deal. Remember that the United States already has a trade deficit with Britain, so it loses money with Britain. And it seems impossible to me that a president whose motto was America first, and claiming that Obama wasn't doing enough to put America first above other countries, is going to settle for a deal that will see that trade deficit increase in Britain's favor. I just can't see that for the life of me. So I think it's going to end in tears. There'll be a lot of rhetoric on both sides, but I think, Donald Trump also has form in saying one thing and doing something else. and that could come to cause real problems for Britain if it's putting all its eggs in this one very shaky and very difficult basket.
OK, Tom Brooks, law professor at Durham University. Great to have your thoughts.